my favorite things to talk about when it comes to the Pokemon trading card game is pull rates. Obviously, I love talking about competitive Pokemon. I really love talking about deck strategizing and deck and theory mining and all these things where it comes to building a good competitive deck. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty, the data stuff, I really enjoy talking about pull rates, specifically as it pertains to your average pack value. So what you can anticipate pulling out of a booster pack of Pokemon cards. And I think that's super, super important because it really gives you a good indicator of a good budget on what you should spend when it comes to opening Pokemon cards. Obviously, there's specific cards if we talk about Evolving Skies with alternate arts, or if we talk about some of the sets from Scarlet and Violet when it comes to those special illustration rares. Obviously, those would be great to pull, and some of them are very expensive. Just look at the market right now. Obviously, we've seen some huge increases when it comes to some special illustration rares. Now, the good thing is a lot of these are retracing. We'll talk about that in Friday's video, but it's important to pay more attention to the ancillary pulls, the cards that you will pull more often, because when you factor in the alternate arts and when you factor in the special illustration rares, spending that much money chasing a specific card, right? You can open 500, 600, 700 booster packs and not pull that specific special illustration rare or not pull that specific alternate art, and before you know it, you've got $1,500, $2,000 invested in that Pokemon card set trying to pull a specific card. That's why we always recommend opening a little bit, having fun. Let's face it, it's fun to open up Pokemon cards, but ultimately budgeting yourself correctly, so that way you're not overspending your collection dollars. Maybe focus more on the singles. Right now, obviously, the market is super volatile, so don't really worry about the market right now. Let it even out, let it relax, then pull the trigger on some of those cards that you might want. But right now, just kind of pay attention to it, and pay attention to the average value that you can expect to get out of a booster pack. When it came to the Scarlet and Violet generation, for the longest time, Paldea Evolved was kind of the GOAT, right? Like, you had some great cards, you have some amazing illustration rares. Obviously, we don't even have to talk about the Magikarp. That card is nuts. And then also some special illustration rares that have done extremely well, but it's really some of the ancillary cards. So we've talked before about the regular arts in the set. Obviously, Chime Pow, super competitive, did really well for a long time. Squawkabilly did really well for a long time. Now, it's a good thing that these got reprinted more because it really increased the availability for competitive players and brought those prices way down. But Chime Pow, because of the reprints, because of the fact that it was available in a starter deck, kind of crashed and burned, fell to about $2, $3, basically a bulk V pricing. Squawkabilly got put into pretty much every Paldea and Fates pack, it seemed like, so Squawkabilly fell like crazy. And when it comes to the regular cards, the uncommon trainer cards, like Iono, for example, which was a very important card, still is a very important card in competitive play, they have reprinted the heck out of the Iono. We just got a second print run of the Iono tournament collection, which includes another full art variant, but some regular art variants. Obviously, every Paldea and Fates pack almost seemed to have an Iono as well. There was another uncommon reprint in there. So Iono, that card has really fallen by the wayside. Again, yeah, it's great because it makes it more available for people to build competitive decks, but that really decreases the average value that you can expect to pull out of a Paldea Evolved booster pack. And because of that, it seems to me, now I still think Paldea Evolved is the best set in the Scarlet and Violet generation, so don't let the title throw you off, but Paradox Rift is really starting to climb, and we're going to look at the average value, the average pack value, the pull rate breakdown of what you can expect to pull out of Paradox Rift, because it's really doing extremely well, and Paradox Rift is one of those sets that seems to be available. Right now, Paldea Evolved booster boxes have shot up to about $130 for a booster box. You can still find loose packs out there for fairly inexpensive, but if you want to open up an actual booster box, Paradox Rift really seems to be where it's at. Now, I do want to issue this caveat out there. We do have Paradox Rift booster boxes on sale on the website, so they are under $100 for a booster box of Paradox Rift, $99.99. I think we also have cases available on the website for $580. I think it breaks down to like $96, $97 per booster box. That is not the best deal out there, so don't run over to the website and assume that Fanny is trying to sell me a bunch of his Paradox Rift. Don't buy it. Don't buy it from our website. There's other websites that actually have better deals. Here is one website right now. So this is Safari Zone. I haven't bought a lot from Safari Zone in the past, but I've heard nothing but good things about them. I know of the owners. I know they're very active on Facebook. They run a really good store. They have cases right now for $560. This is cheaper than what I have available. So by no way, shape, or form, I appreciate the support. Thank you so much for everything. If you do decide to buy from me, I try to usually record videos where I don't have product available. It just so happens that we do have Paradox Rift booster boxes, and this video just kind of planned right at the same time where we got a big Paradox Rift booster box shipment in. So by no way, shape, or form am I telling you, hey, you should go over to my website and and buy them. There's other deals. I'm sure you can find something on eBay, which is a little bit cheaper as well. So this is like $20 cheaper than what we have a case price for if you go to Safari Zone. So I wanted to throw that out there. Obviously, like I said, I do appreciate the support if you do decide to buy from us, but by no way, shape, or form am I encouraging you to go and do that. With that being said, let's jump into the actual data here. And I'm going to try and break this down as easily as I possibly can and showcase everything. So on the left-hand side here, we've got the category of rarity for everything that you can pull when it comes to those upper echelon cards, every ultra rare that you can pull from Paradox Rift. So we've got all the double rares listed here. And this is the amount that we pulled when we opened up our initial opening for Paradox Rift. So every time a new set releases, we open up a few thousand packs to get a good idea of what the pull rates look like, stock our store with singles for competitive players, help out the team, things like that. So this is a quantity right here of the amount of that specific card that we pulled when it came to Paradox Rift. And then it breaks down the pull rate data. So overall, we opened up 2,376 packs. I don't know if you can see that up there or not, but 2,376 packs of Paradox Rift. We pulled 27 Armorage EXs. That means 1 out of every 88 packs, we pulled 1 Armorage EX. And then the right column over here breaks down the price point of all these cards currently on market data. So unfortunately, the majority of regular arts, the majority of the double rares when it comes to Paradox Rift are basically all bulk pricing. Like they are very, very inexpensive, except for Iron Hands EX. Iron Hands EX continues to do well. The future Pokemon do really well in competitive play. Obviously, we don't have any major competitive events right now up until Worlds. So the World Championships are going to be happening next month in August. And right now, everybody's just kind of prepping. Everybody's just kind of training, maybe playing in some league challenges, maybe playing in some local leagues, maybe playing on PTCG Live, but they're getting ready for the World Championships next month. And because of that, Iron Hands is definitely one of the cards that is expected to perform well at the Pokemon Card World Championship. So I understand that bulk pricing for V cards, EXs are a lot cheaper than $2 right now, but I firmly believe if you look hard enough and you sell singles individually, you could probably get $2 for a specific bulk V as long as you're patient. So that's why I put $2 as the market price for every single other EX, because they're all just bulk pricing outside of the Iron Hands EX, which didn't have terrible pull rates. There's not really any outliers when it comes to pull rates. I wasn't really worried too much about batching. There were some weird things with Paradox Rift, but Paradox Rift is also a very interesting set, is because that is really when you started noticing pull rates change a little bit. For a long time, you were getting basically 2 special illustration rares per booster box. It seemed like every booster box you opened up of Scarlet and Violet base, or of Paldea Evolved, or even Obsidian Flames, you would pull 2 special illustration rares, or at least 1 and a hyper rare. And Paradox Rift was the first set where it seemed like they backed off a little bit, and then they backed off a lot with Temporal Forces. So Paradox Rift is still good when it comes to opening, because you still have that good chance of pulling a special illustration rare, but you do not get them as frequently as what you did with Paldea Evolved, with Obsidian Flames, and with Scarlet and Violet base. So not really any big outliers in here. Obviously only 11 Serena EXs, which is a lot different than 30 Iron Valiant, but there's not enough packs that we open. You need to open up like 100,000 plus packs in order to get a good sample size for unique individual pull rate data. This is really more of a breakdown by rarity pull rate data. So you can see basically everything $2 except for that Iron Hands EX. That's kind of the most important thing to talk about. If we go over to the ultra rare category over here, Paradox Rift actually not doing too bad. So yeah, you've got the Frostlass, which is selling for $2. Again, no outliers really in here. There's some that we only pulled a couple of, but some that we pulled several of, like the Hoopa EX here, we pulled 10 of. That seems a little bit high. We pulled 12 of the Larry, unfortunately. That seems a little bit high. Shout out to Tickle Jason for that one. I know that's his fave. We only pulled 3 Tapu Koko EX, 3 of the Garchomp EX. But if you look, there's not a whole lot of bulk EXs out there when it comes to full arts for Paradox Rift, which is really nice. Armorage EX still selling for $3. Garchomp EX, that's the funny hat Terra Garchomp EX, selling for $5, which isn't bad. You've got $3 on the Serena. Iron Hands EX still doing well because of competitive play. That one's selling for $17. The Iron Valiant, the Hoopa, the Toxtricity, those are at $3. $4 for the Sandy Shocks, which isn't bad when you consider the fact the special illustration rare is relatively inexpensive. You got $6 on the Roaring Noon EX, but how about this one right here? The Full Art Mousehold EX is selling for $9. Now, part of that is just because it's a fan favorite card. Like, a lot of people really enjoy Mousehold EX. That's really the only thing that I can think of. It's not super competitive, but a full art card that is selling for $9, doing extremely well in the market currently. Then you've got $2 for a bunch of other ones. You've got $5 for the Mellow right there, $10 for the Professor Sada's Vitality, which is a very strong competitive card. You've got just under $4 for Professor Turo, $2 for Rika, Rourke, Chantal, and then $4 for Tulip. If we go over to the illustration rare category over here, Paradox Rift has a lot of them. This is the first set since Paldea Evolved where we're really loaded with special illustration rares and illustration rares. We had Obsidian Flames, which released, which did not have many special illustration rares or illustration rares at all, which is why it only takes you a case and a half maybe to open up an entire master set of Obsidian Flames. But Paradox Rift, a lot more. You still get similar pull rates, so you still get 3 illustration rares per booster box, but you have 3 times the amount of illustration rares in Paradox Rift than what you had in Obsidian Flames. Very close to what we have for Paldea Evolved. It was very difficult to master Paldea Evolved, even with strong pull rates, because the sheer amount, the sheer quantity of illustration rares and special illustration rares. So while you may pull 3 per booster box, a lot of times you're going to pull duplicates, you're going to pull triplicates, and then you have that one unique card that it's just seemingly forever, it takes forever to pull. So if we look at the data, there's a lot of illustration rares that are really starting to climb. The Magby has moved up to $8, so that one's not bad there. $5 for the Snorunt, $5 for the Mantike. You have $7 for the Vanillish, $4 for the Wimpod, and $3 for the Veluza. Still fairly inexpensive there. The Plusle and the Minion, $9 and $11 respectively. $3 for the Blitzel, which isn't bad. The Joltik starting to climb a little bit. There's another new Joltik artwork that just got released. Joltik, really cool, getting a lot of love by Pokemon, which is awesome. $7 for that one. The Spathra is currently at $5. The Gimmighoul, not too bad, only at $7 right now, and that's a really cool card. You pair that up with the Golden Goal, it makes that really cool picture. I'm a big fan of that one. That one's only selling for $7 right now. And then you have the Groudon, which obviously has gone through a lot of buyouts and has skyrocketed quite a bit. $53 currently on the Groudon. That's actually very close to the most expensive card in the set right now. Closing in on that Roaring Moon special illustration rare. Mineshaw is at $4. Minior is at $8. The Garganacl is only at $2. Not bad for that one. Slitherwing's at $4. Garbodor, the card that took me forever to pull. That was the last one that we needed to complete the Paradox Rift Master Set. That one's currently selling for $6. The Evital not doing too bad, and we actually pulled a fair amount of them. You can see 8 of them, which was more than the majority of illustration rares that we pulled. That one has moved up to $17, so that one's doing extremely well. Morpeko has basically been holding consistently really since the release of Paradox Rift. That one currently selling for $11. That really reminds me of like just candy scenes all over the place. It's very, very cool. Brute Bonnet currently selling for $5. The Steelix has climbed up. Very cool looking card. The Construction Zone Steelix has moved up to $23 a piece. The Ferrothorn's at $3. The Aegislash is at $4. The Apom's at $5. Loudred's up to $9, so that one has moved up a little bit too. Swablu's at $5, and Porygon Z is at $6. Cyclizar's at $3, and Iron Jugulus is currently at $5. If we move over to the special illustration rares, these have been up and down all over the place. It's been absolutely crazy, but there are a fair amount of them in Paradox Rift, which is important to take note of. Again, we talk about variants all the time. Now, you get about 0.77 special illustration rares per booster box of Paradox Rift. So you almost get 1 per booster box, which is much, much better than what we saw in Temporal Forces and much better than what we saw in Twilight Masquerade. But again, not as good as what we saw from Obsidian Flames, Paldea Evolved, or Scarlet and Violet base. You have the Garchomp EX, which has moved up a little bit, but kind of leveled off, currently sitting at $21. The Galissapod's at $14. The Tapu Koko also has moved up a little bit. That one's at $18. The Iron Hands actually has come down a little bit, which isn't bad considering the fact of how competitive this card is. Currently selling for $25, so not too much more than the full art. You have the Iron Valiant EX, which is at $34. The Sandy Shocks is actually down to $10, which again isn't bad at all for a special illustration rare. Here's that Roaring Moon. Now, $55 is expensive, just barely above the Groudon for the most expensive card in the set. But when you factor in where this Roaring Moon has been, at one point in time, it was over $100 right after release. Then it fell down to right around where it is now. So it's retraced pretty much back to that before we had a bunch of buyouts in the last month and a half or so in middle of May, middle of April, where you saw a lot of these cards kind of start skyrocketing again. Roaring Moon was one of those, which jumped up to almost $80. Now it's back down to about $55, which is much better. The Golden goes at $23. Again, not bad considering the fact it makes that picture with the Gimmighoul. Very cool looking card. The Altaria EX has moved up quite a bit. That one's at $38. $12 for the Mela. Parasol Lady hanging on strong at $18. The Professor Seda, not too much more than that full art variant that we talked about before. That one's currently at $16. The Turo is at $7. The Rika is at $8. And the Tulip is also at $7. If you look at the Hyper Rares, not a whole lot that's super expensive in this one. Only one of them that's at double digits, and that's the Counter Catcher Catcher, currently sitting at $11. Counter Catcher, a very playable card in competitive format. Because of that, a little bit more of a premium price on that one, but $11. The hyper rare Garchomp not doing too bad when you consider the fact that a lot of hyper rare Pokemon are not doing very well. So $9 for that one. The Iron Valiant is at $5. Roaring Moon only at $8 for that one. The Beach Court is down to $4. You have the Luxurious Cape at $5 and Reversal Energy at $3. All right, Fanny, what does this all mean? Can you break it down for me? Because you're just spitting a bunch of numbers out there and that's all you're doing. So yeah, of course, I will break this down for you. So let's talk about the average pull rates that you get per booster box. If we break it down, you get 5.41 double rares in your booster box of Paradox Rift. Now, obviously, these are just the regular arts. And like we said before, there's not a whole lot of value in this outside of the Iron Hands EX. So because of that, your average value averages out to $2.55. Yeah, you could pull that Iron Hands EX, but you're going to only pull between 5 and 6 regular arts in your booster box. So for average sake, it's going to lean closer to that bulk pricing of $2. So $2.55 is your average. Your average per booster box, $13.79. So if we take the amount of pulls that we get, the amount of double rares we're expected to get, which is $5.41 or 5.41 in our booster box, we multiply that times the average value, which is $2.55, and we get our grand total of $13.79. The full art's doing a little bit better than the last time we looked at this. You get 2.38 in a booster box, 1 out of every 15 packs. Your average value for full arts is $4.03. Obviously, you could pull some of those bulkier ones, but you could also pull that Professor Seda. You could pull the Roaring Moon. You could pull something a little bit better. Because of that, your average value is $4.03 per ultra rare. That means on average, your booster box should have about $9.59 worth of value when it comes to those full arts. Those illustration rares, you get 2.79 per box. You should get 3, very close to 3. If you get 2, it's probably because you got a hyper rare and a special illustration rare in your booster box of Paradox Rift, but you should get 3 illustration rares in your box, 1 out of every 13 packs. Your average value is $7.62. Now remember, there's a lot of them, so you could pull something like the Cyclizar, you could pull something like the Steelix, and you could pull something like the Ferrothorn, which would give you a little bit better than that average price of $7.62. But because of that, because of the fact that there are so many hovering right around that $5, $6, $4, that price point, and it's getting a little bit taxed by that Groudon, it's a little bit higher probably than what I feel overly comfortable with, but you should be fairly close to this as far as an average goes in your booster box. You should get about $21.24 worth of value out of your Paradox Rift booster box. When it comes to special illustration rares, remember 0.77 per booster box, so a little bit more than a booster box worth of packs is what it's going to take to pull a special illustration rare. Should get 1 in your box, but don't be surprised if you don't. It's 1 out of every 47 packs. The average value right now is $20.40. Yeah, you could pull the Roaring Moon, which is worth $55, but you could also pull that Sandy Shocks, which is worth only about $10. Because of that, your average per booster box, you're expected to pull about $15.76 worth of value when it comes to the special illustration rare category out of your booster box of Paradox Rift. When it comes to hyper rares, you get 1 out of every 2 booster boxes, so 1 out of every 72 packs. Your average value on those is $6.43 for the most part. All of them are hovering right around $6 or $7, with the exception of like the Reversal Energy, which is only a few bucks, and then obviously the Counter Catcher, which is selling for $11. Because of that, you are expected to pull about $3.22 worth of value when it comes to hyper rares out of your Paradox Rift booster box. However, the big caveat is right here, this Earthen Vessel and this Counter Catcher. These are uncommon cards that you can pull out of your booster box of Paradox Rift. I looked at the data a couple days ago. Earthen Vessel was currently selling for $3.50 for just a regular art. The Reverse Hollow was selling for about $5.25. Now, you should pull at least 2 of these in your booster box of Paradox Rift, so that means you're pulling about $7 worth of value at least. If you pull a Reverse Hollow, even better, just when it comes to Earthen Vessels. Now, Earthen Vessel is selling for more than just about every single regular art EX, every single double rare outside of Iron Hands is selling for less than this Earthen Vessel because it is such a playable card. Helps with that consistency, helps find energies, helps make sure that you can attack. Like, it's just a big card. And then Counter Catcher, another card that's doing really well, currently selling for about $1.50 per copy. You should pull about 2 of those as well. The RH selling for a little bit more, the Reverse Hollow selling for about $2 a piece. You should pull about 2 of these in your booster box, which would give you an additional $3. That means Earthen Vessel and Counter Catcher, if you pull those out of your booster box, that's going to add about $10 worth of value to your booster box. And because of that, your ancillary pulls goes up. So if we just factor in ancillary pulls, typically you're only looking at about $10 because there's not a whole lot. You're just looking at bulk, you're just looking at some hollows, you're just looking at some code cards. But when you add in the fact that there's some staples in there that up that value a lot, that brings your ancillary pull rate up to about $20 worth of value. So your average value when it comes to a booster box increases quite a bit when you have some of those cards that are a little bit easier to pull, have some value associated with them. When you look at your average pulls per booster box, you're looking at about $63.60. So if we add all of these categories together, all of these double rares all the way up through hyper rares together, you're going to get to that $63.60. Then you add in your average ancillary pulls, which is about $20. That means your average box value actually goes to about $83.60, which isn't bad at all. Your average pack value is worth about $2.32. So your goal is to find booster packs as close to this price as you possibly can. So if you can go on TikTok Shop or go on TCG Player or eBay or whatever, and you can find booster packs of Paradox Rift for about $2.25, it's basically just fun that you get to open up because you're averaging to pull the same amount of value that you're putting into those packs. Rarely does that ever happen with Pokemon, but I feel like you might be able to find $2.25 booster packs. Your booster box price, and this proves to me, like what I said at the beginning of the video, it's always better to buy singles. Even with how good Paradox Rift is doing and even how cheap we can be able to do cases and booster boxes. Remember before I was talking about Safari Zone having the booster box case for $560. I think we have them for $580. Still not worth it. That's why if you're looking to open up product, this is close. It's about as close as you're going to get, but you're still going to lose money no matter what. Your average box value is $83.60 when it comes to value. Your booster box price on TCG Player is about $108. Now, like I said before, there are booster boxes that can be found for cheaper. If you break it down to about $96, you're still expected to lose then about $13 every time you open up a booster box of Paradox Rift, but it gets a lot better. The fun cost gets a lot better than what it was before, so a lot better than what you would see even from like Paldea Evolved right now, way better than what you would see from like Evolving Skies. So it's important data, at least in my opinion, to share because you really know, obviously ripping packs is fun. Opening packs of Pokemon cards is really enjoyable, but it's always good to know what you're getting into when you go into it. There's a fun cost associated with any form of entertainment. Opening Pokemon cards, in my mind, is a form of entertainment. It's something that you do for fun. You should never expect to make money opening up Pokemon cards, but this is right now probably the best set in Scarlet and Violet when it comes to the smallest amount that you will lose when it comes to that entertainment. So I hope you enjoyed the data. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the algorithm, but most importantly, I do love this stuff and I love you guys. So thank you so much for just giving me the opportunity to sit here and talk Pokemon with you guys. It's so great to talk about this stuff. Rather than talk about the craziness of the market, I'm going to try and take a step back from a lot of that because it's getting really frustrating. I think a lot of people are getting in their feels. We'll talk about the retrace that's happening right now, but there's too much attention that's really getting paid to all the stuff that's skyrocketing, and there's a lot of great stuff with the hobby as far as enjoyment that you can have. So love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Until next time, peace.